All right. Hey, it's Rob, and in the mood to make a video today, so I'm going to talk about my miserable job of working as a boom operator. All right, so I work in the field of production sound, which means I am on the set of TV shows and feature films, and I also do a lot of work in corporate videos, recording training videos, informational videos. I just did one for Chick-fil-A, which is just like an announcement to the staff on how you book travel with a certain agency or whatever. So specific stuff like that for corporate shoots in studios and things like that. And that's kind of the bulk of my work. I like to think that most of my work is as a sound mixer, as it was yesterday with Chick-fil-A. And this boom was sitting on a stand and nobody was operating it yesterday. But I do have periods of my life when I go back to working as a boom operator, which is how I got my start in this field. And I'm in one of those modes now when I'm working on a couple of different TV shows as a boom operator. I work for another sound mixer who I enjoy working with, and I'm out there working as his boom operator. So what is the deal with this crazy job, boom operating? What's happening? What's being achieved? What's the goal? Why does it have to be done this way? Why has it been done this way for decades? Does it still need to be done this way? I'll talk about a few of those things here in this video and just let you know basically about my miserable job. It's not that miserable, although sometimes it is very physically demanding. It is a very political job. You are basically putting a stick in somebody's camera frame. They don't want that stick there. They want it to be just out of the frame like this. But if you dip in or whatever, they always see it. They always let you know. Now there are things that can be done. They can reframe it. They can paint it out, it's called, in post, but they don't want to. They basically want you to be where you're supposed to be to get the great sound, which is directly over someone's head in most cases, like I'm showing you right here, but still out of the frame, not in the frame. But basically, this is the idea, is putting this boom over a person's head or a different actor's head. So of course, if there's an actor here and an actor here, I'm going to be moving it from this person who's talking to this person who's talking to this person who's talking, back to this person, maybe back to this person, maybe there's another person talking back there. So you are basically trying to get this microphone as close as you can, directly over the head, over the nose of the person who is talking, and that is the best way to get sound with a boom mic. You can also get sound from below with the boom mic. It's not as good, and there are different reasons for that, just the way that the human voice propagates. Also, you're pointing at a ceiling, which is echoey. You'll pick up that echo. If I'm pointing here, I've got a floor underneath me. If I'm sitting, I'm like 2 feet from the floor. If I'm pointing up, I'm getting 8 feet up to the ceiling and the echoey sound of the ceiling and everything. By the way, I'm just recording this on my phone, not through this boom, so you're not hearing anything. It's not that kind of a demonstration today. Just showing you what a boom operator does and what they have to deal with in their miserable day. So I got my start as a boom operator with a female mixer in Los Angeles. Maybe one of the few, if not the only female sound mixer back then. She worked on a lot of low-budget action movies. I worked on a lot of crazy things that end up on like a DVD compilation called 10 hair-raising action movies. And of course, you've never heard of any of them and don't know the actors and whatever, but you find it in the grocery store for $3, with 10 action movies on it. Those are the kind of great movies I worked on with titles called White Cargo, Hard Justice, you name it. Anyway, so it was a good way to get my start. They were kind of fun movies to learn my craft on. Back then, it was kind of a different landscape. The equipment was very minimal compared to what we have now. You basically had a recorder and a guy with this microphone sticking it over people's heads. We had some radio mics back then, but they were not very good. We would do entire movies without ever using a wireless radio microphone, which is a staple today of production sound. Anyone you see on any scene, in any TV show, in any film, anything you see on Netflix, somebody is wearing a wireless microphone 100% of the time, unless they don't have a shirt on, or they're doing something like crawling through a muddy field, or something where physically you couldn't put a microphone on their body without it getting destroyed or getting bad sound. That's, not necessarily the sound you're hearing, but they are at least wearing those microphones, and so that's an option today we didn't have back then. They just weren't that good. If you had a radio microphone, you really kind of didn't want to use it because they sucked. And you would use it only if there was no other possible way to get the sound of the person talking. Well, today, now we use multiple cameras. We will do shots that are really wide and far away, and then really close at the same time with multiple cameras, with multiple different lenses on them, taking different frames. And that makes it difficult for a boom operator because obviously if I am far away, my boom has to be way over my head. If I am close, well, the boom can be right over my head and I'll get that good, close, clean sound. But if they shoot these multiple cameras at the same times with one really far away and one really close, I can't get that close sound because I'm going to be in the shot of the camera that's far away. These are all the things that boom operators have to concern themselves with. And this is not going to be an exhaustive explanation of what a boom operator does, just a general overview if you've ever wondered, what is that person doing? Why are they holding that thing in the air? I'm going to tell you right now the stuff we work with and the basic workflow, what we do during the day. All right, so like I said, I got my start as a boom operator. I moved into being a sound mixer, which means I bought the recorder and the microphones and all that stuff. And so a lot of the times I am the person doing the recording, and in those situations I usually work by myself and the microphone is just sitting on a stand. So I'm recording a person who is stationary, who might be standing and delivering, they call it, or might be sitting or whatever, but they're not moving anywhere. So the mic doesn't have to move. I don't have to hold it because it's not going anywhere. It goes up on a stand, on a special holder, and it sits there and picks up the sound. When I work on a film or a TV show, it's a different thing. I worked on some cool TV shows in the past, like Walking Dead, Stranger Things, which shoot in Atlanta, and I've worked on those shows as a boom operator. So in those situations, of course, everyone's always moving. There's no way you could put a microphone on a stand. You're gonna go from this part of the woods to the road and down here and jump in a truck and go, so everything's always moving, there's always action and things happening in most of these scenes. And so you're always physically operating the boom in scenes like that. Basically, this is a mic we would use inside, and it has a real tight pickup pattern, which means it doesn't pick up a lot of the sound around you, and it is just narrowly focused on what you are pointing at it. This one is called a Sennheiser MKH50, and it has a cardioid or heart-shaped pattern to pick up basically the dialogue and not any other stuff going on like the plane I'm listening to going over me. You don't want to get that. So these are what are called shotgun mics. They are very focused. You can even see by the shape, you're going to pick up just what's coming right here and try not to pick up any of the stuff that's hitting it on that side, although it does get picked up, but not to that degree. Inside, you can get away with a little foam windscreen. You could even get away with no windscreen. Outside, you might be using the same microphone, but it's going to go in a rig like this, which is called a Zeppelin. We call it a basket. We call it a lot of different things. And what this does simply is you put the microphone in, and because of the material it's made out of, it diffuses wind. So if I am out there operating the boom and I am moving it between people and the wind is hitting it this way, it will kind of diffuse the wind so that you don't hear that awful, terrible sound of wind hitting a microphone. If it is a particularly windy day, we'll pull this thing out, which people like to call the dead cat, but it's not a dead cat. Don't listen, Diego. Yeah, I know you like cats, but it's just called a windsock, and we call it a furry, a fuzzy. We call it a few different things, but basically this even more diffuses the wind that is hitting directly on the microphone and keeps that horrible wind noise away from people hearing it in the final track. And yet this material is very transparent. I mean, it's not totally transparent. It's going to muffle the sound ever so slightly, of course, but the way stuff is made and the materials it's made out of, etc., it's made to have a minimal impact on the sound, but it will cut out all your wind. So that's some of the stuff we work with. The boom pole itself, I think this is graphite. They're made out of carbon fiber. They're made out of different things. They have multiple sections, of course, which telescope in, and you can have the pole longer, you can have the pole shorter, etc., and get it to the length that you need it, depending on how far away you are from the subject. This one here has a transmitter on the back end of it to wirelessly communicate to my boom operator. Pretty much all boom operators are using a wireless transmitter these days. A few people still use a cable, a hardline cable, to go to the sound mixer. That is, of course, the safest, best way to connect to the sound recorder with this device is a cable. Obviously, unless the cable breaks, which you would know, it's going to have the less kind of issues, the most solid connection, as opposed to a wireless, which you could lose the signal, you could, go in and out, you could get what's called wireless hits, where it'll cut out real quick and come back and lose the reception, that kind of stuff. But our wireless technology is really good at this point, and you pretty much most of the time will get a good solid signal back to your boom operator with a wireless connection. Up here it's called a quick lock, real quick, and real quick on the quick lock. This is a special additional piece that you have to pay $150 for. Everything's $150 except the microphone, which is $1,500, and the boom, which was a lot more than $150. But basically, this accessory helps you to quickly be able to mount a microphone with a little cam lock here, and it locks it right in. So we use multiple microphones during our day, specific microphones based on what we want to catch, how far away people are, how much room we have in the room. If we have a little low ceiling, we might use a short microphone so we can get up and not bang ourselves on the ceiling. If we have someone really far away, we might use a really long microphone like this one here, and we can catch things that are happening much further away if we're a further distance. We use multiple different microphones for different reasons, and so having a quick way to pull it off and put it back on again is helpful. This is called a shock mount here. This basically isolates it so that my microphone can bounce and move, but none of those sounds are transferred back to the sound recorder. Also, your technique in holding the boom. I usually take my wedding ring off because it bangs on the boom. I don't want my sound mixer to hear that. And you have a technique of having a real light touch on this boom so that you do not have a lot of handling noise and constantly moving and shifting around your hands. When you work with the boom operator who's inexperienced, that's the first thing you hear is these, large, quick, fast movements. You hear it in the recorder, you hear it in the sound. So you learn as a boom operator to have a very light touch on the boom, almost like the boom is floating in your hands, and you just lightly touch and move and slowly move your hands in different configurations to get the sound that you need to get without transferring any sound to the microphone, which would then go back to your sound mixer. You don't want to be adding any sounds that are not already there. All right, so basically the job of boom operating is to be on the set all the time. Back in the day, we would often be off the set because we would be only the second person on a two-person department. You had the person running the sound recorder called the sound mixer, and you had a boom operator. But sometimes the boom operator had to go off the set to put the wireless microphones on people and do other jobs. That was very distracting, and you were out of the action. You weren't where you were supposed to be. So today we strive most of the time to have a three-person crew, a sound mixer, a boom operator, and then a sound utility who does all the other jobs off of the set so that the boom operator can plant themselves on the set to be there where the camera people are, to know what's happening in the scene, to assess, to listen for different sounds that you might be hearing that you have to deal with, like air conditioners and dripping faucets and who knows what, a million different sounds, a buzzing, clock, a humming refrigerator, you name it, whatever it would be. So you physically are going to walk around the set, see what weird sounds are happening there. As the boom operator, it's your job to run the set. You are the representative of the sound department on the set. The sound mixer is probably off somewhere behind a wall. You don't want the sound mixer to be seen, of course, so they kind of find a convenient place which is not too far away because they have wireless mics and they have antennas that need to pick up the wireless signals. They want to be as close as they can and yet not so close that they're in everyone's face. So the boom operator is the representative of the sound department on the set, and as such, you decide how the sound is going to be captured. Again, like I said, everyone's going to get a radio mic pretty much as a default. So that's a backup sometimes. It's a nice comfort to know that if you happen to miss, when you are cueing, because you have to pretty much learn the lines too. You have to pretty much learn at least enough to know what actor is saying what, at least when they start the line and when they end the line. Because if I'm saying this line here, and then I know that she's going to be saying this line over here, well, I have to anticipate and get that boom over here, get that boom over here. Maybe someone's saying, like I said, a line in another place. I have to think ahead and know where people are going to say things and what they are going to say and be in the best position to get that. Now, boom operator is always looking for something called a frame line. That is an imaginary line above which the boom can't be seen and below which the boom can. You can use a visual reference, like you look on a wall. I'm looking at a brick wall here right across from me, and I might think, oh, that second line of bricks right there, that's basically where my frame is. So as long as I'm holding the boom and I see that from my vantage point it's above the second line of bricks, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be out of the camera's frame. Now, cameras move. Cameras tilt. Cameras move. Cameras go up on what's called Steadicam rigs or easy rigs or things where they are mobile and physically moving with the camera person. Of course, that means the top of the frame is going to move too. Just like if I picked up this phone, it's going to move all over the place. We just did a shot in a pool where the camera was in a watertight rig and floating to simulate the POV, the view of a monster that was in the pool, whatever. So obviously, if the camera is floating, well, that frame line is going to be floating too, up and down. So sometimes that imaginary line is moving. Sometimes that imaginary line is stationary. In any case, you learn where those imaginary lines are. You learn by knowing the different lenses of the cameras. You learn by knowing that if the camera has a tight close-up lens, a bigger number, like 100 millimeter, that they're going to be like this on a person. If they have a 10 millimeter lens, they're going to be seeing everything. So you learn by finding out lenses. You can kind of look at lenses and see by their size sometimes. You don't even have to ask questions at some point once you've been around it long enough. All the camera people have monitors today. You can pop your head in and see the monitors, see what the shot is, see what's in their shot, what they're seeing, that kind of thing. Like I said, you just get good at knowing what these cameras are seeing and where you physically need to be in the shot to stay out of the shot when they are rolling these cameras. And like I said, it can be very difficult because they do multiple cameras at the same time and they have different shots. Also, you are always looking for things like reflections. They're going to see your boom every single time in the windshield of a car. So they don't physically see it here. Maybe I'm out of the frame, but I'm reflected in the windshield of the car and they're seeing it move when it's in there. They're going to see it in the reflection of a doorknob if they're close on it, windows, pictures with glass frames. Of course, mirrors and things like that are trouble as well. So you're constantly looking around not only to see if you're out of the frame, but if your boom is going to reflect in anything. And of course, if you're going to put a shadow on the wall. If I have my boom and there's a light here, well, of course, the boom is going to put a shadow on this side. If there's a wall here, there's going to be a shadow on that wall if I get between a light and a wall. So you've got to, sometimes it doesn't matter because the camera's not looking at that wall. Sometimes it doesn't matter because the way the lighting is, it's very diffused. You can't really tell. Sometimes it doesn't matter because the shadow you're putting is above the line where they're looking, but you have to be aware of all the shadows you're making. And sometimes you just aren't. Sometimes you miss it. Sometimes I'm looking this way, but there's a camera that's seeing behind me and there's a shadow behind my head. I just didn't see it. It happens. It happens to all boom operators. It happens to the best boom operators. It happens to the not so great boom operators. By the way, there are boom operators out there who are at the top of their field. They're like the Ferrari of boom operators. I do not in any way, portray myself as one of those people. I am a decent boom operator who can get out there, who knows the job, who can do the job without getting into too much trouble politically. And that comes from the fact that I interact well with camera people, that I try to have a nice, pleasant demeanor. I'm not confrontational. That if a camera person asks me to do something, to stand over here, to move over there, they tell me they're going to see me here, this, that, or whatever, I will immediately find a different way to get the job done and not get in their shot. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes it happens that you are, gonna dip the boom into their frame, which you didn't know had changed, or, things are gonna be seen that you were unaware of. It's gonna happen. It's just a fact of life, but you try to minimize those events. You don't wanna be the person who slows the train down. You don't wanna be the person who makes them do a whole takeover again because there was a shadow on the forehead of the actress, whatever, or in their hair, something you didn't even see, you didn't even know about. Another problem with boom operating today is they don't really rehearse. A lot of shows will just shoot because we're shooting not on film anymore, but on computer chip cards. And it's not the urgency to make sure you are getting the best stuff on film as it was in the past, because film was expensive, and as long as film was running through a camera, it was going to cost a bunch of money, and you didn't want to waste a bunch of film on nothing. You did a lot more rehearsals back then so that would not happen. Today, you pretty much shoot the rehearsal, which means if there's a problem with the boom, if it's being seen somewhere it shouldn't be seen, or reflected, or there are shadows, you may not know it until they do the first take, which is ostensibly your rehearsal, because we don't really do the rehearsals anymore like we used to. Sometimes we do. Some jobs will be really good about doing rehearsals. They'll do something called blocking, where they just physically show where people will stand. They put down marks, tape on the floor, so that they know where people are going to stand. You can look at these marks and know where the boom's going to have to go based on where the person's going to be on their marks. And then they rehearse, and you're able to, again, get in there and, find out the places you can be where you're safe. It doesn't always happen. Some things shoot really fast. Some things just got to keep going, and don't have any time to do the rehearsals, and you find out the problems as you go. Not the best way to do it, but that's the situation you're in. Anyway, so basically that is the job, my miserable job of working as a boom operator, which I generally enjoy, although sometimes physically it's very demanding. I'm 55 years old. It's tough to do this all day, to hold this up. I am not in a great physical shape by any stretch of the imagination. So all those things make it a little more difficult to spend my day holding this thing up in the air, but I do it because I love working in sound, because I know it's important, because I know it's one of the ways that we get good sound is to have a boom over someone's head, even though a lot of times it's just not actually possible. It's getting more and more so that people are relying on the microphones, the wireless microphones, on people thinking, we don't care about the boom because they're wearing wireless microphones. Wireless microphones are a whole other half-hour-long video, a whole other topic on why they're great and why they're terrible at the same time, why sometimes they work really well and sometimes they can't be depended on at all. So anyway, this is just one component of how you make a film by capturing the sound with one of these booming devices. And all right, so I think there was maybe one more thing, or a couple more things I was going to say, but they're kind of slipping out of my mind now as I go on and on and on and on about this stuff. But anyway, maybe I'll think of it and do another video about it. So in any case, that is the basics of, what I wanted to say was, what motivated this was I read something, Jodie Foster has something called a master class, where she talks about the different jobs in film production and what you do. And there's a paragraph about boom operating saying that boom operating is an entry-level position. You don't need any specific training, and it might be good if you had been on the set as a production assistant or something, but it's not a big deal. It's something you can just pick up and run with and learn, and all you're doing is holding this thing up in the air. It's nothing. It doesn't look like you're doing anything or you need any training. You just physically have to be able to do this. It couldn't be farther from the truth. There are so many things that go into this job of holding up and having this microphone in the right place at the right time for the right amount of time over the right actor in the right angle. There's 1,000 things you have to know about this job, and it's one of those jobs that you can listen to me yammer on in a video, or you can read it in a book or whatever, but it's really just the physical work of being out there on a set, starting on smaller, low budget things and going to bigger budget things and learning how you do this job, how you interact with the equipment, how you interact with the people, what your role is on the set, and all that stuff takes years and, hundreds of hours of practice to learn how to, successfully operate a device that looks like a stick with a microphone on it, which is basically what it is, but there's way more to it than that. So if you learn nothing else from this 25-minute video now, just learn that this is not an entry-level, easy job. A lot of people making films think they can get anybody to do it. We can just get some kid who just wants to work on our film to hold the boom up and it's fine. And more often than not, what you get is a kid that holds the boom up and their arms start shaking and the noise starts to go in the microphone and things are banging and hitting and the microphone is getting in the camera frame. And so there's a lot to it besides the physical aspect and training yourself to hold this up at a certain level, imaginary line, above the actors' heads. There's a lot more to it as far as how you physically operate the boom and how you move, smoothly and quietly from one actor to the other. A ton of different things that go into it. Way more than I can go into in this admittedly very long video. But basically, just wanted you to know about one of the jobs that I do and what a person who is holding this up on a set, if you happen to drive by a film set and wonder why they still have to hold that stick up in the air, isn't there a better way to do it? Boy, I wish there was. People always also say, isn't there some kind of rig or some kind of thing you can wear where it would be mounted on you and you could, have a button that would extend it and bring it, I don't know if there's ever going to be that. And they're always trying to make those things. And every time we see them, we kind of laugh and yeah, that's not really a way to do it. There's really no kind of substitute for being able to physically, with your arms, be able to manipulate the boom and to walk to different places and to move and to change your angle and to lean back and to lean forward and to stretch out and to crouch down. All the physical movements that you do with this thing just can't be replicated by some kind of machine or whatever. It would be nice. There are some, rigs that they've had where it's like attached to you by a strap or something and it's supposed to take the weight off, or maybe in certain situations it would work, but for the most part it doesn't work at all. It's going to limit your movement. You have to have unlimited ability to move and react to situations that are always changing. So basically, I don't think there's ever going to be anything that replaces doing this with a competent boom operator who knows what they're doing, who knows where to place the microphone to get the best sound. All right, now I am going to finish it up. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.